I attended the meeting in August. I didn't attend the prior one. And the question was asked, Mr. Mattson, what are you going to commit to in terms of when you're not going to ask for further changes, for changes to the conditional use? When will you commit? You know, what time frame out? No answer. He got his client to avoid the question, in my recollection.
May you let the residents' testimony speak for themselves, Mr. President?
The record can speak for itself, Mr. Mattson.
Sure it will.
I'm happy to stand on it. And so there are questions. There are questions about new employees and employee training that haven't been adequately answered in my humble opinion. There are questions about not making a commitment about when not to ask for additional changes, how long they are going to wait to ask for additional changes. Everybody here has been, we got bright people here in the township, and people have been asking bright questions, and they haven't been adequately answered, and we all know that this is not the best use for that property. This is not what's going to move Haverford Township forward. This is not what we were talking about at that candidates forum. So I'm here to ask you, as a resident of 20-some years in this township, that I ask that you have the guts to do what the Planning Commission would not. Thank you.
Any other public comment on this application? Can the people out there hear me? Is there anyone out there that wants to make a public comment on 5 Lindillo? No. Does the board have any more questions for Mr. Mattson, or I can turn it back over to Mr. Mattson?
I just have one thing.
Do you see a comment? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah,
see
hold
the
on a
picture.
second. We want the Historic Commission
Okay.
to talk about the property in a
I
second.
should have raised her hand.
Madam Solicitor, can I see that resident's picture? She asked if anybody wanted to see them. I think Jane and I would like to see the picture.
Well,
Is that okay?
I'm sorry, hold on a
Ms.
second.
Nazer, did you make those part of the record at the Planning Commission?
When I was at the planning commission, and is there any way you can like show these?
Are they part of the record at,
Are they part of the record at the Planning Commission?
Each one of the planning commission people when.
okay,
we
so
were at
that's
that
good.
meeting.
Okay.
I don't think they were made part of the record.
They weren't made part of the record. Okay.
Okay, can you make them part of the record so we
Yes.
can view them?
Can you give them? Do you have an extra copy, or do you have?
No, it doesn't have to.
Okay.
I don't need an extra copy, but this gives you the basic. Robin Mazer. These were photos that I showed as part of the record of the businesses directly across the street. To give you an idea,
Is that Phase Automotive?
this is Phase Automotive, and it has been cleaned up.
Can you hold on for a second? I was hoping that we could just get
Take them.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Get
yeah.
them.
All right,
Yeah.
why don't you hand them in so she can make them of record?
We can review.
Commissioners want to see them.
Can you address some of these questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Pictures of the school, and then looking across from my property, and then what the local properties look like that have been converted to businesses. In addition to that, I also, at the planning commission meeting, had given pictures of the facility on Darby Road that they have, Torrey House, and I had showed pictures, and I have those with me too, and I can.
Rob, can you go over to the microphone so they can pick you up on the,
Just so for the record, we have I have been handed 6 pieces of paper with 11 photographs on them from Ms. Nazer. We'll mark them as Nazer 1 and pass them out for the board to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
hand those down to Commissioner Vermillion?
In addition, at the planning commission meeting, I had given photographs of the Torrey House, and I asked if they took care of the maintenance at Torrey House, and I was told they did. And then when I showed them the pictures of the Torrey House with grass and weeds growing out of the gutter, and all the windows are askew, I was told that the building is not owned by them, and the maintenance is the state needs to take care of the maintenance. Is that correct? The state takes care of the maintenance for Torrey House?
State's responsible for the building.
Right. The state's responsible for the building, therefore it is unkept.
Okay.
I need to drive to Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Okay, for the record, I'll mark this as a NASER 2, which is 3 pages of pictures of the Tory House. They're marked as Tory House. And just, ladies and gentlemen, as we're engaging in this conditional use hearing application, if we could avoid conversations back and forth, for the record's sake, it's best if we just present, and if there's a question that's been asked, like some of the public comment proposed questions to Mr. Mattson, I'm going to allow Mr. Mattson an opportunity to respond, unless the board has any questions for Mr. Mattson at this time.
Okay, can we have the Historic
Yes.
Commission come up first, and then we can have Mr. Mattson?
Yes.
Nate? Stacy? Stacy Maddox. Stacy, would you like to come up? Let's swear her in, please.
I do. Stacy Maddox. My address is 25 East Benedict Avenue in Haverton. Stacy, S-T-A-C-E-Y, Maddox, M-A-T-T-O-X. Thank you very much. I'm here this evening representing the Historical Commission. CareLink came before us. First of all, I'm sorry. We did prepare a letter summarizing our recommendations, which I don't know if Lori forwarded to the Board of Commissioners, so I'll provide copies this evening.
Do you want to put them in the record?
I have 3 copies, so I think.
Read it for the record, okay?
That's
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Should I provide one to the applicant as well?
I would like to see one. I haven't seen one.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm going to just read the letter. This is really just a letter that I forwarded to the township. This was based on our meeting on October 21st, 2013. CareLink, represented by Michael Cosentino of Lynn Architects of Media, presented the proposed accessible ramp for the Lanark School. I believe that might be shown on this. Our purview only is limited, and I'm only representing this evening the historic resource, which is Lanark School. The plans presented included SP1 dated 5/31/2013, which is this plan, as well as an existing photo of the area of work and a photo rendering of the proposed ramp and guardrails, a copy of which is included herein. I don't know if you have a copy of those. I provided copies to
With your letter?
that I provided a handout to. It just shows before and after. Mr. Cosentino, the gentleman right here, the architect, indicated the desire was to create a ramp of the same stone and matching the coursing and joinery of the existing stone of the school building. The ramp is proposed to rise approximately 64 inches and provide accessible entry to a new reception space. The new building entry will require a modification to one window on the first floor, and exterior lighting will be required to illuminate the new door and ramp. The lighting was not presented at this time, but was noted to be required. The addition of a ramp will require infill to several windows affecting natural light to the basement area. The window infill was discussed to include leaving in place the window headers, removing the window frame, and infilling the existing opening with stone to match the existing stone building. The infill work was described to be recessed from the face of the window header. Some concern was expressed to not see flashing, and it was subsequently noted that the windows in question, no visible flashing exists today. The Haverford Township Historical Commission passed a motion in favor of the planned accessible ramp with the following provisions. These were agreed upon by the gentleman. New stone as presented is to match the cut and coursing of the existing stone of the school. Real stone was presented, and Mr. Cosentino noted cultured stone would not be used on the project. The stone joints are to match the existing building stone joints and may be ribbon joints. The joints are to be verified, and Mr. Cosentino noted the new stonework at the ramp would match the existing stone joints. So it was passed unanimously by all members present that evening, of which we had a quorum. And in this documentation summarized herein will also be in our meeting notes. The stone proposed is to match exactly the stone that's used in the original building, and we had no objections.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Maddox from the board? No. Thank you.
No? Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Matson. Any questions for Mr. Mattson from the board?
I would like one more question, please. Torrey House. So Torrey House is another one of your facilities.
Toy House is a facility that's operated by CareLink, yes.
It's operated by CareLink, and I just heard that the state maintains the property.
State owns and maintains the building.
Okay.
They're responsible
so
for interior.
I'm very familiar with the property as I go over there almost every day. I'm looking at pictures of Torrey House, and, I usually drive by. I don't get out of my car and inspect the property, but it looks like it's in great disrepair. The roof looks bad. The gutters aren't clean. There's grass growing out of the roof. Would this be the case? Would the state be taking care of this CareLink facility that you're proposing on Lindell?
No. The state owns that where the Torrey House is located. That at one time was owned by the state. That's what the state hospital was.
Yes,
up
it
there.
was, yes.
And I don't know how that's related, but they still own it. CareLink's under contract to them to provide services. They don't own that property. This property here on Landillo will be owned by CareLink. It's not going to be owned by the state. So CareLink is going to have primary responsibility for maintenance. So that excuse isn't going to fly, okay?
Do you have another property close by that I might be able to visit?
That's owned by CareLink?
Yes. It doesn't matter. It's in the city, it doesn't matter. I mean, close by, I mean within 30 miles. 140 South Lansdowne Avenue. And how long have you had that facility?
The facility was purchased in 1961.
And is that purely administrative, or is that complete services?
Those are apartments with services, career services, and our mobile psych rehab program staff was out of the back part of the building.
Do you have a medical staff there? And to whom would I address if I went to visit the property? Is there someone there that would run the facility that I'd be able to speak with and possibly tour?
What I'd have to do is get you a phone number that you could call.
Okay.
So that someone would be there.
That would be great. Thank you. That's all.
And can I just say this, in terms of the work, the gutters and such, I'm not sure when the pictures were taken, but I can tell you that all those gutters were recently cleaned and tried to clean again, because that building has in the back of the building is a large oak tree, so that generally those gutters are cleaned sometime around the end of November, early December, after the leaves have fallen from the oak tree.
And with all due respect, I do visit properties on a daily basis, and when there's grass that's 4 or 5 inches tall, it's little more than just a few oak leaves. So with all due respect, I think it looks like it's a bit neglected, but I would have to go and visit it to make sure.
That would be the responsibility of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a person from Norristown State Hospital who we have to interact with on a regular basis regarding the property.
Thank you.
Can I just ask, though, when you said that it's the responsibility of the state, and when the grass and things like that are not taken care of, then do you notify the state that you're not living up to your obligations?
Our property is deeded, what we pay rent for, okay, is a clearly defined piece of property. That tract is 11 acres. We do not have a lease for 11 acres. We have a very clearly defined piece of land that we are responsible for. So you may be looking at part of that 11-acre tract that we do not have any responsibility, or it's part of our lease. It's
No,
very
but-
clearly defined. So the state is therefore responsible for the rest of the tract. In our lease agreement, and I can share that with you, is a very clearly defined tract. And That is the responsibility. Everything else is managed by the state.
But would you make the state aware if it's really looking crumbling and weeds overgrown and things like that? And what would their response be?
Well, my contact person is a person at Norristown State Hospital who oversees apparently that tract on the grounds that was formerly Haverford State Hospital, as well as I understand the tracts at Philadelphia State Hospital.
Right.
It's been vacated for many years. And so it's, for us to get some response to our request is rather challenging at times. So I call, I make requests. We send letters, we make requests. Sometimes we hear a response promptly, sometimes we don't.
Okay. Thank you.
We're not trying.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Commissioner Holmes.
I just wanted to ask Mr. Mattson, the question was raised about lighting in the neighborhood and that it was going to look like, I guess a shopping mall. My question, did you have any issues with the condition number 11, which indicated that lighting is no higher than 15 feet, controlled by timers, and has to be shut off no later than 30 minutes after the close of business for the day?
No, we didn't. That was given to us by the Planning Commission. They imposed that.
Not anything you're, and for those nights that you know you're going to be working late or anything like that, are you still living by the 30 minutes after the close of the regular business day?
Yes, we'll live by that.
Okay. With regard to the maintenance of 5 Landillo, will you employ a private entity to do your maintenance for you, or?
We currently utilize a company called Budget Maintenance, who maintains a lot of the maintenance work and facility management for our properties.
Does the state allow you to go up on the building at Torrey House and clean out the gutters and do anything like that?
Well, we just do it. We can't guarantee that anybody will show up.
Okay.
That was my point.
I mean, we have worked with Delaware County and have had, particularly under the Juvenile Justice Department, we've had, in the fall, we've had volunteers come out and do a lot of cleanup work as part of their community service projects. And they are scheduled to come back again in early spring to do more. So we have utilized a team of young adults, young adolescents, or older adolescents to come out and do work. Yes, we have. But that, again, our tract that we're under obligation for is very small part of that tract.
Mr. President,
Commissioner D'Amelio.
I want to thank the resident that handed us these pictures, because I have to tell you, I am appalled by what I'm seeing on this one picture with the grass growing up there. When you get budget to come, maybe they can mow the grass on the roof. Sir, just to be clear, I mean, where the administrative offices are now, where they're located,
Yes.
at any given time, do you have any patients that need to come there for any reason?
No.
So there's never a reason why a patient would be escorted by administrative staff.
My understanding from my client is that all the outpatient services are rendered at places other than the administrative offices.
Okay.
So at Torrey House or at the
So-
residential facility in Lansdowne.
Okay, so at Torrey House in Lansdowne, right?
And there's other facilities as well.
So what happens is if someone needs a consultation with a parent or a legal guardian, that's where they would hold that. It wouldn't be in the administrative area.
No, it wouldn't be. Now,
There's never a reason for that. Never a reason for.
never a reason for that, except that let me say this. Let me just clarify this. And this is in the notes of testimony at the Planning Commission at the second hearing. There's a grievance procedure for a person in service who may have grievances with the services that they're getting, and there's a plan of how you have that grievance, just like government or something else, how you have that grievance adapted. The last step in that grievance is with one of the senior administrators at CareLink. And they have taken place at the administrative offices It's solely an administrative function. There's nothing clinical happening there. And in the past 2 years, it's happened once. So yes, there's a possibility that that could happen. Okay? So I'm going to be honest with you. That was said to the committee, but that's where it's happening. But this is not, they're not getting services, they're not being counseled, they're not being medicated, they're there solely for a grievance.
And I understand that.
Okay.
I just want to know if there was that possibility, and to be clear, there is that possibility.
It's a possibility someone could come and knock on the door, too. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I can't control that.
For the purposes of putting out information, I think we need to be clear on what
Well-
could possibly be showing up.
I think I have been.
Okay, I'm not
Okay.
saying you weren't. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure they were.
Okay.
They understood.
Commissioner Holmes.
Mr. Mealy, are you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Mattson, other questions were asked about financial viability of CareLink and of this particular deal. So I have a few questions for you. I don't have any idea what the answer is, but I just want to get some advice. CareLink itself, does it have financial reporting obligations to any other entities?
It's a nonprofit 501c3 corporation, which has to file a Form 990 every year with the IRS, which is a public record.
And therefore, I mean, do you have any independent obligations to the Township of Haverford to be giving us your financials or otherwise showing us the financial viability of this?
Yes, Mr. Holmes, let me say this. I've been in land use before zoning boards and commissioners and planning commissions for over 30 years. I have never, ever heard that question asked of me. And I don't know that you really want to ask that question now, because I don't think that you want to single this one person out when that maybe isn't done for other applicants before this board or before the zoning board. No one has ever asked me about the financial viability of somebody being able to buy a property in connection with a zoning application. You either have it or you don't have it. That's controlled by contract, and that's a contract between private parties. So they do have a contract to buy this property. It's contingent upon what happens here tonight. And I'm completely honest in transparency, if the conditional use isn't granted, then that goes away. We have an out, and it'll go back to the way it was. And then somebody else is going to come along and file either a conditional use application or a zoning application, because that's in an INS district, and the uses by right there are very, very limited. So they're either conditional uses, which mental health care agency and facility is one, or special exceptions.
Do you have a board of trustees to whom you report?
Yes.
And those trustees do not work for CareLink. They're just
No,
separate people in the community
they're volunteers, they're directors.
who supervise the company.
They-
And
they-
are they satisfied with the financial viability of this project?
I believe they are.
And do
I-
they have independent duties as a board of trustees of a 501c3 to be sure that this is financially viable, or they could possibly face
Sure. They-
examination by the Attorney General of the state of
They
Pennsylvania?
have,
Isn't that
they
true?
have fiduciary duties, and I always tell my clients who want to serve on nonprofit boards, you better be careful, because you have all these duties. You think it's just showing up in the meetings enough. It's not. You have to make sure that all these things are followed, and they're followed properly. I also reviewed this with the COO, who's here tonight, who is the money man, and he assures me that everything is fine.
And has the board of trustees approved this plan?
Yes, they had to approve the plan, because the CEO would not be able to sign a contract unless it was ratified by the Board of Trustees, just like in any other nonprofit or even for-profit.
That is all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. President. I'd like to ask Mr. Stetson, what brought CareLink to the former Stratford School? What was it that they chose that building, that particular neighborhood there? And was it someone from the facility that found the building, or was it Stratford that reached out to you? How did that
Well, the
come about?
facility had been vacant since 2009. For the best of my knowledge is that CareLink was looking to relocate to a more centrally placed area in the county, which Haverford Town is, because of all the outreach they do around the county. It's easier to get out to these places. It's easier for staff members to get there rather than have to drive all the way down to Eddystone. Plus, there is a financial aspect to it, because it's going to be more financially viable for them to own this property than have to rent as they do presently down in Eddystone. So
In your research for it, were there any other buildings
I
throughout the area that?
I wasn't involved in the research. I came in after the fact, after they signed the contract. So I can't answer the question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I got a few questions. The green space, the buffer that we're talking about, instead of having a black PVC fence, Would there be any interest in putting bushes, things like that, to separate?
Well, only if we don't have to lose parking spaces, that would be the concern, because we had to start taking up, macadam and concrete to make beds for the bushes. We may not have enough room in that parking lot to have the 32 spaces we had. Now, I sat down with the architect when we were doing these plans. We wanted to get this parking lot as close as we could to the zoning requirements of the township, and I think we're just a little bit over. So we could probably afford to lose 2 or 3, but where you want to put it along there, along the walkway, that would take out a significant number of parking spaces. And I just don't, I don't think that'd be viable for the township.
Actually, I have a question for Ms. Widup. Is that okay? Oh,